Hi everyone, I'm Kelly O'Horo, and this is Adaptable, Behavior Explained. Hi everybody, thank you for tuning in today to Adaptable. I'm so glad to have you here. I'm really excited to discuss the topic of mindset, specifically a growth mindset today. It's a really important concept to understand because it really shapes and affects so much about how we interact in the world. And I'm especially excited to have with us our guest today, Jayden Ocampo, who is going to tell us a little bit about herself.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi.
Thanks for having me. So my name is Jayden, and I'm 20 years old. I'm currently a student at ASU. I'm super excited to be here and talk about growth mindset and how I use it in different avenues of my life.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And she's being quite modest because she is a fascinating young woman. I've known her for about 7 years.
Yes.
She's one of my neighbors, and she is at the Barrett's Honor College and has just been a hardworking overachiever. And part of why I chose you to be on the show is because it's evident that a growth mindset has been part of the outcomes that you've experienced. However, there's a broader spectrum related to mindset that I wanted to discuss, especially as it relates to people in their early 20s. I think that you have a lot of challenges, and I wanted you to share some of the things that have helped you to become successful and overcome obstacles and helped get you to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for being here. So Jayden, you have been described as a gifted child and someone who has met or exceeded many expectations that society might have for you. And I just wanted to know a little bit about how you would describe mindset for yourself.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would have to say, we could really simplify my personal mindset for life, literally into the phrase, why not? I feel like I've been able to do so many things and things I never in my wildest dreams thought I was going to be able to get to do, and especially so young in my life. But just having the why not mentality, it really eliminates any limitations you would put on yourself, because if you're presented with an opportunity and you're like, oh, I'm too young, oh, I don't have a degree yet, oh, I'm not qualified for this. But the why not mentality is just so empowering, because it's like, okay, well, so what? Just try it. You could get a no, and that's okay. And a no is never forever. And so really just having that mentality makes me super fearless in the pursuit of my goals. And it really eliminates any limiting factors that I could put on myself or that society could put on me. Because when you're like, well, I have nothing to lose and absolutely everything to gain, you just go for anything and everything. And it's opened so many doors for me. And honestly, it's been a domino effect, because saying yes to something that was out of my comfort zone, something that I wasn't sure if I was capable of doing, led to the next thing, that led to the next thing. And just never holding myself back has been so incredible. And it's been really cool to see and everything come into fruition. But yeah, to answer your question, my personal mindset is why not?
I think that that's awesome in an ideal world. But a why not mentality without guardrails could potentially create problems or danger or things like that, depending on how you pursue the why nots or how you're, given opportunities about which you would say why not. So what values would you say help you to have a filter in how you make your decisions, so that it's not why not jump off the cliff or why not do this other drug or whatever else? For you, how do you implement some guardrails with values?
Yeah, absolutely. It's super important to not be reckless or careless. Everything I do is very thoughtful and with intention. And so I do have values that I almost use as a rubric to kind of measure opportunities against, that I'll say yes or no to, and still having why not there,
Sure.
is really important to me, to making sure I'm not letting an insecurity hold me back. But if I say no to something, it's just because it didn't align with the value, and that's okay. So to answer your question, I guess I would have to say two really important values in my life would be ambition and advocacy. I think it's so important, especially as a young woman in today's society, to be super fearless and going after things. And so I'm a very ambitious person, and I do work super hard. And then also tying in advocacy to my work, because I think when you're given opportunities, it's so important to bring people with you or to advocate for people who maybe don't have the stage that you're on. And I pair all of that that with my third value, which would have to be my faith. I'm a very Christian person. And so if I feel like an opportunity doesn't align with my personal morals and values, then of course I will always respectfully turn it down. But I try to carry ambition and advocacy with me. And then just to make sure, it's not a dangerous choice. Of course, I'm being super intentional about what I'm saying yes to. I'll use my faith as like a metric for that.
Awesome. So it's clear that ambition drives you and can be the fuel that perpetuates your fire, and your outcomes have demonstrated tremendous ambition. How would you say, in a world where things are so fast paced, which is an incredible I think disadvantage in a lot of ways, that you incorporate mindfulness as part of how you manage not letting ambition turn into exhaustion?
Yeah, that's so important. Burnout is so real. And I think we do live in a really fast-paced society. I work in social media, and, your feed is just filled. Like, there's not even gaps between the videos. It is just scrolling and scrolling, and everything can feel so fast. And so it is so important to find those moments of mindfulness. And I think for me, that's like car rides. I love listening to music and having my windows rolled down. And I am in the car a lot, going from point A to point B. And so sometimes it's hard to like add to the schedule. Like, I'm going to journal today. So I really like to find moments that are already in my day and then integrate gratitude and mindfulness into those. So whether it's saying like a quick prayer at a red light or just listening to music, I really do find like the car is a really good space for me to be mindful. But also in my other jobs that don't really involve screens, I'm a baby gymnastics coach, and obviously I'm not on my phone when I'm doing that. And so working with the kids, being super hands-on and just being away from my phone is like really good for me throughout my week to just have those moments of really important human connection. I would say just finding spaces where I'm already going to be at work or I'm already going to be in the car, and then incorporating mindfulness into those moments is really cool.
That makes sense. Do you ever have moments where there's just stillness of just being without an objective? Like, even, prayer is great for quiet space going within, but what about anything that's just completely void of an action attached to it?
Good question.
Do you have any of those times for yourself?
I mean, I am 20 and I am a college student, so I do take naps. Nap time is great. I'm a big advocate for nap time. In between classes, highly recommend a 20-minute power nap. And I let myself rest, and I don't let myself feel guilty about it. I will schedule rest into my day. It will say on my schedule, in between meeting and in between class, 20-minute power nap.
That does not surprise me.
And it's so cool because when I check that off my list, I feel productive. It's not something I feel guilty about. So moments of complete stillness, I'm a big napper.
That's awesome.
That would be my authentic answer to that.
Can you describe a time where you were able to incorporate something that was really mindful and the outcome that it presented for you?
Yeah, so I'm a really big reader. I love to read books. I think it's so important. It works on your mind, and it's fun because sometimes I have to read, like, no offense, but really boring stuff for my classes. And so getting to read books that I enjoy just for leisure is super important to me. And so I really wanted to spread that. I was like, how could I spread my love for reading with others? And so after I read a book, I would take notes on it because I wanted to remember that story. And I did that for like a year. Read a book, take notes on it. And that was an opportunity for me to be mindful. And then I was like, well, wait, why don't I create a journal based off the template I was organically doing, and why don't I release a reading journal? So I worked super hard for oh my gosh, it was a project I spent 6 months on, but I created, designed, and manufactured a reading journal that I sell on Amazon, and that has been so cool. And it was 6 months of really intentional mindfulness. Every detail in that book had so much purpose in it versus something to the smallest detail of the font or the color I chose or the graphics on the page. There's a lot of nature on the notes pages. Awesome. And that was so important to me because I truly do feel like reading was an escape.
Sure.
And so
it can be. Anything that's too much that pulls us out of our present reality can work like that. So I think it's great that you're aware of that.
And so that was an opportunity where I was so mindful about everything that went into my book, and the outcome was absolutely incredible, and the feedback I received was amazing. overcoming. And it was so cool because I released it around Christmas time. And then I saw on social media, people were buying the book and giving it as Christmas gifts. And that made my heart like so happy. That was such like a personal win for me, because truly that was the goal, was to spread my love for reading. But that was an opportunity for me where I was so mindful about everything that went into that book, and then the outcome of getting to sharing it with people.
So awesome. You must be so proud of yourself.
It was really
such a cool accomplishment. So it's clear that you have a lot of ambition, and I love that you have advocacy as part of your values. I'm curious how you address things, for example, limiting beliefs. We all have limiting beliefs, and overcoming them and having sort of a plan to overcome those limiting beliefs, or maybe a mantra or things like that, are oftentimes helpful. So what are some things that you embrace when it comes to overcoming limiting beliefs?
Wow, there have been so many like just incredible wins. Like it's not like they didn't come at a cost, and it's not like it didn't take a lot of hard work to get there. And so especially being a gifted child and growing up in gifted preschool all the way to now being in Barrett the Honors College, it's been an absolutely incredible experience, but it did come with kind of some like harmful self-perceptions, I would say. I think one of the labels we put on gifted children is that they're attention seeking, and that is such a negative connotation to it. You know, it's associated with the idea that like, oh, like we just want praise, we just want accolades, we want your attention, we want to show how smart we are. And so something that's been really crucial in overcoming that limiting belief, that was something I held about myself. You know, I had been called an attention seeker, and I like internalized that. Sure. And that led to like a really negative perception of myself. And so something that's been so like critical for me in overcoming that was changing my mentality from I was an attention seeker to no, I was a connection seeker. And when you see gifted children as connection seeking, your entire viewpoint of that child changes. Sure. Because with attention, it's so negative. It's like requires another party. We want the praise. We want the accolades. Versus connection seeking, it's like it's mutual. It's like, wait, I want to understand you. I want to learn more. Like gifted children are such empaths. You know, we seek that human connection. And so your entire viewpoint of that child changes. And that really helped me change how I saw myself. And I also think when we think of receiving attention, that requires another party. That requires somebody else validating you. That requires somebody else praising you and being the source of your confidence. And with connection seeking, I think one of the most important connections you can have in your life is the one you have with yourself. Of course. Connection seeking eliminates that other party. Right. And it's like, wait, like, not that like I need somebody else to validate my intelligence or my gifts or my capabilities. Like I know I'm smart, right, and that's the only thing that matters. And I'm connecting with myself, and it's so much more positive. Right. And so I would say switching my mind frame from attention to connection seeking has been really cool. I think that's so very important because, you know, as humans, we are hardwired for connection. And I think that children absolutely need approval and praise. And I think that pride motivates future behavior. So I think that external implication of seeking attention versus the internal hardwiring that we all need praise and connection. And we all need that as part of our development of self and security and attachment and who am I as a person, I think is another important concept to just put out there, because in all parenting, whether, you know, your child is gifted or not, when they have behavior that appears to be attention seeking, I think that a lot can be missed because ultimately all behavior, bad or otherwise, is the result of an unmet need. Yes. And so if we can change that lens and look at behavior as something that is needing to be addressed, and then think about it through terms of connection seeking, which is totally life-giving, I think that is a beautiful piece of advice. So thank you for that. I think, you know, that what you internalized so intuitively can help a lot of people, and maybe even change that frame of reference from how we view, you know, attention-seeking behaviors
with anyone.
Exactly. And
That's
I think seeing it as connection seeking is so humanizing, because it's like, gifted children, they're more than a mind. They're more than a test score. They're more than a data point to like brag about. They're a human being, and they have those same needs. Regardless of IQ, every human has this intrinsic need to connect. And when we extend
intellect aside.
Exactly. And when you extend that grace to gifted children, it humanizes them. And it's like, there's so much more than like their grades. They're a human being, and they genuinely seek connection with others. And that is beautiful. It's really incredible.
Yeah. And it must be hard when you think about, and we don't need to get into this too deeply, but just something that occurred to me is when we are, if we accelerate or if we excel at something, such as yourself, there is a lot of praise that tends to come from it. And there's also a lot of accolades that are given. And then coupled, whether intentional or not, expectations around those accolades and the excellence that is achieved. So I think that it can be a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy in that you do so well with something and then get a lot of praise, because we want to see people do well and we want to praise, and that it's hard for that to not turn into an external cue to motivate future behavior. So I think it's really insightful that you kind of caught that piece and were able to course correct it, how you think about it.
Because with connection seeking, you're really focusing on the connection you have with yourself and not necessarily the outside praise.
Right. So there's a lot of buzz around positivity, toxic positivity, and the power of positive thinking, because our thoughts do fire and wire data together, and the focus that we put on our daily thoughts really does impact perpetuated future thoughts. So how would you describe positive thinking for you, and how does it impact you?
Yeah, so we're talking about mindset today. And so I definitely think the ability to have a positive mindset is such a personal victory for anybody. And so I would say I use positive thinking to reclaim personal autonomy over situations I didn't have any control over. Because when you're going through a hard time or when something unfortunate happens to you, like, you can't change the situation. But one way to take back some of your power is changing your mindset and your perspective on that issue, because it really is you saying, like, yes, this hard thing happened, and it would be impossible for me to not be changed or affected by it, but I'm not going to be defined by it. And so utilizing and leveraging a positive mindset can allow you to reclaim some of your power that maybe a hard situation took away from you, because you're able to see, like, and not to be toxically positive, and you can be like, I'm not grateful for that. I don't have to be grateful that happened, but I can be grateful in that moment. I don't have to be grateful for that moment, but I can say,
or even furthermore, what that moment taught me, or I learned from, or the triumph that I got to feel for the overcoming of.
Yes.
And so it's almost like I ran the marathon, and even though at, mile 28 or I ran the marathon, and at mile 23, I think I can't get through this. The triumph you feel when crossing that finish line. I don't have to be grateful for the fact that everything hurts right now as I'm running, but I can be grateful that I overcame. And feel that pride.
Yeah.
Goal setting is of paramount importance when it comes to getting anywhere. We have to know where we want to land in order to achieve the things that we want to do. And we want, as far as outcomes in our lives. So can you tell us a little bit about, for you, how do you implement goal setting into your life, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so I definitely rely on my why not mentality, and I like to set really big goals for myself, because even if I don't fulfill the goal, well, wow, look at this amazing outcome I still was able to reach because I set the finish line so far away. But more often than not, what I found is that when I set super high goals for myself, I truly do all I can so God can do all I can't. I really do feel like I put 110% into everything I do, but God really does orchestrate so much magic behind the scenes to put the other people I meet or the other doors that are going to open for me, like to be in the right place at the right time to open for me. And so I would say when I do set those really high goals, I often surpass them because I have the Lord in my back corner cheering me on. And so I would say with goal setting, I'm not afraid to go big because I know God's only going to make it bigger.
That's awesome. And if you get knocked down, there's a lesson there.
Exactly.
Right. That's great. So we can't talk about how a person turns out without talking about our upbringing. And Adaptable, it's all about the human experience and how our histories inform what happens for us today. And so when you think about your upbringing, and we had talked before about your parent influence as positive reinforcement and coupled with high expectations. Can you talk a little bit about how that has impacted your goal setting strategies and the way you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I was raised by a mom who grew up in rural New Mexico. And so she did not have access to the incredible teachers I got to learn from, the, amazing accelerated learning programs I had available to me. And so, it was really why she moved me out here, was because she'll tell you this to her face. She said that when I was born, I was just looking around. I just observed everything. And she said, the moment I saw, your little baby eyes, I knew there was something special about you. And she felt like God had given her, not to brag about myself, but this incredible gift of a child. And she felt so convicted to do whatever she needed to do to give, this baby girl a platform to share her gifts with the world. And so when we moved out here, I was put into accelerated learning programs, which was absolutely incredible because it was something my mom didn't have the opportunity to pursue. Right. And she wanted to give me a life that she couldn't have when she was younger. And so what that meant moving out here was that, you're going to go to school in the most academically competitive district in the state.
Did that feel like pressure at times for you when you think about the bar being set so high and you're going to do all the things that I didn't have a chance to do? When you think about how you feel about that, does it send any I haven't thought about it that way in the way of pressure? I really need to outshine because I was given so much opportunity.
I do not see pressure as a burden. I see it as a privilege because, wow, how lucky am I to have somebody that wants me to be my best self and is going to push me to get there. And so something that was really interesting was that my mom never demanded perfection. That was never the expectation. The goal was always, you are going to be the best version of yourself because you deserve that. Everybody deserves to be the best version of themselves. And so it was so important to my mom that I was given the resources to fulfill that. And not so she could live vicariously through me, and not that she had a vendetta against, her childhood, but just that she truly thought there was something so special about me. And she thought she would be doing me a disservice if she didn't help me do everything I could possibly do to be the best version of myself. And so, yes, the expectations were sky high. I will not lie. There was a lot demanded of me. But pressure is a privilege because it means there's somebody who believes in you and believes in your potential to succeed. And I
especially if it's coupled with a lot of praise and a lot of accolades, and it's not just where you fell short if it wasn't perfect.
No. Sure. And so the expectations were sky high, but I was literally never told okay, fly. Go do it. Grow wings you don't have. My mom really did help me build a ladder. And that's something we've talked about before. Awesome. And so I was always you are going to be the best version of yourself. No questions asked. But I believe in you. But I think you're incredible. But you're so smart and you're so hardworking. And let me make sure you have access to tutoring. And let me take you to the library as many times as you want me to in a week so you can read every book you want. But let me make sure you have fun. So if you want to hang out with your friends and you want to do other opportunities, I'm going to make sure we have time for that. And so it was so holistic. And I was able to explore anything I wanted to. But it was just so important to my mom that this child she felt she had been given from God was never held back. That was so important to my mom.
It's clear with ambition, advocacy, support from your family system, all of those things are in your favor, no question. But I think there are some things that are just hardwired related to our personalities and our epigenetics and everything our family line has been through and our stories of overcoming. And that leads us to talking about resilience and ultimately grit. So when you think about those two concepts, resilience for yourself and grit, can you tell us a story of overcoming where resilience was at the base of everything and where you needed to rely on some grit to move through?
So when you're doing incredible things and you truly feel like you're living in a movie, people will bring you back to reality very quickly. And it is so important to never forget that you can never make everybody happy. And there are always going to be people to have something to say about what you're doing. And they're going to try to bring you down. And it's really important to just remember that. And so a specific story of where I had to really rely on resilience was like, I would say, I kind of always experienced bullying growing up. You know, I told my mom when I was 8 years old, I wanted to be on Disney Channel. And she said, okay, let's do it. And so I signed with a modeling agency and I worked in the entertainment industry for like 5 years and it was incredible. But with that came like bullying at school. Right. And that never went away. It evolved into body shaming as I got older. And then, you know, eventually the source of my bullying was coming from adults.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I played 2 sports in high school and my tennis coaches were absolutely amazing. I love them so much. But a coach for another sport I played, you know, was caught in a very public manner saying really hurtful and horrible things about me. And I was not there. And it was such a weird experience to be bullied by an adult because, you know, it's
such a betrayal.
It is such a betrayal. And, you know, especially like you feel like your coaches and teachers and mentors in your life, they're supposed to be like trusted adults, people you respect and people who you know you can count on. And it was such a betrayal to hear just the really nasty things that were said about me because I was still a child.
How did you handle it?
That was really hard. Because you just don't know if you're worth speaking up about. Mm-hmm. And so in conversations with my mom and with my family, we were like, do we speak up about this? Do we cause a problem? Mm-hmm. And I think that's so wrong. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when I truly like to see myself as like a survivor of a lot of situations. But I think when you're in the middle of it, a lot of victims don't say what happened because of this fear, like, oh, I don't want to bother anybody. I don't want to be a burden. No, I'm okay. It really wasn't that bad.
Minimize your experience.
You want to minimize your experience. And that really takes away from like the severity of what happened. Like an adult said really horrible things about me and that's not okay. And so ultimately what it came down to was like, there are so many other people that have been in this position that was a child and had an adult say horrible things about them. And they didn't get a voice and they didn't get an opportunity to speak up.
So there comes your advocacy.
So I'm going to speak up in this situation, if not for myself, for every other little girl that had something nasty said about them.
How old were you when this happened?
I was 16 or 17 at the time, you know, those are very formative years. Right. And that, you know, one comment can stay with you for a long time
absolutely.
And really influence how you see yourself. And so I was like, and you know what, I'm also going to speak up because I'm going to contribute to a culture that says bullying is never okay from another child, from another adult. And I'd been bullied for like 8 years at that point. And it was like, I want to be somebody that said this wasn't okay. I wanted to be somebody that had this cycle end with me. And this really vicious cycle because hurt people. Right. And I didn't want to let this change me. And I didn't want to grow up to hurt another person because of unresolved conflicts I had in myself. And so I did speak up. I did say something about it and people were held accountable and justice was served. And that was so important to me. And that was such a little victory for me.
And it taught you that your voice does matter and that your experiences matter. And that's such a beautiful thing to be part of your resilience story and your grit for sure. And the fact that you had family to support it, I think is really critical as well. So you can hopefully see why I invited this young lady to be on our show. She's just a bright light and I feel so lucky to know you. We do have more for you from Jayden and that'll be in another episode. But I wanted to just thank you so much for being with us and hopefully you shed some light on other people of similar stories or can provide an example to be, a beacon of light to be, to point toward and have young women feel inspired by the person that you are. I know that I certainly am. And I think that you're just a lovely human. And she is not just beautiful on the outside. She is totally beautiful on the inside. So she has all of it. She's an incredible person. So thank you so much for being with us. And you can get that journal on Amazon. We'll put the link in the comments below. But until then, make sure that you lead with love. It'll never steer you wrong.